guys, Geoff here. Just doing a short video on the question of, do I qualify to preach the gospel? And so this is a question that I hear from people quite a lot, and often it's an objection or maybe an excuse as to why that particular individual feels like they can't come and preach the gospel or share the gospel with other people, why they can't be soul winners, why they can't do public ministry. And there's a number of reasons and a number of excuses that people will use as to why they don't qualify. And so I guess I just wanted to dispel some of them and to talk about a couple of them, a couple of the common reasons that people don't believe that they qualify to preach the gospel. So first and foremost, the gospel is the responsibility of all Christians. And so it doesn't matter what stage of your Christian life that you are at, it is all of our responsibility to be soul winners. One of the things that I hear from people is, I'm not walking that close with God right now. I've done something this week, or I don't feel quite right in my spirit or my soul or whatever you like. God can't use me. I think about Philippians 1:18 when I hear people talk like that. I'll just read it to you. Philippians 1:18, Paul is writing obviously to the church in Philippi, and he makes this statement. He says, "What then? Notwithstanding every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is preached, and I therefore therein do rejoice, yea, and will rejoice." Paul was talking about people that had, let's just say, a fairly nefarious motivation to preach the gospel. They wanted to cause him problems. And so they were going out, and their motivation was not for the glory of God. It was not for the benefit of the local church. It wasn't to be faithful laborers. It was really because they despised Paul and they wanted to cause him problems. And so their motivation was completely wrong. And I would suggest that, I don't know if I've ever met somebody who comes out for those types of reasons. But Paul said, you know what? Even if their motivation is wrong, even if their heart's wrong, I just rejoice that the gospel is going out and people are hearing the gospel. And so there's a lot to be learned in that statement. And ultimately, our ministry of the gospel to people is not primarily about us anyway. It is about others. It is about God. And yes, there are benefits to us, and there are learnings for us, and there is a maturing for us as we do that and we grow in that. But we need to always come back to, it's about the gospel going out. It's about the proclamation of Jesus, who has overcome sin, overcome death, overcome the enemy in the death, burial, and resurrection. It is about that. Now, sometimes I would say our motivation is probably never there, but some people's hesitation is because they feel like they've done something wrong. They haven't lived up to some standard that they've convinced themselves in their mind, and until they reach that high standard, they can't be used. This is just not true. Reality would tell us, many testimonies would tell us of people that have come to Christ through very unusual means. Many people testify of hearing the gospel in a drunk tank somewhere, and some backslidden, sometimes ex-pastor or some backslidden Christian who is drunk out of his mind is in that drunk tank, and they're preaching Jesus, and somebody gets saved. Obviously, we're not talking about, hey, it doesn't matter how you live, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're a Christian, you should try to live a holy life. If you're a believer, you should try to emulate the character of Christ in everything that you do, in your relationships with your family, your spouse, your kids, your pastor, the other brethren, in your workplace, all of those things. And if you are in sin, and it's maybe besetting sin, and it's even unrepentant sin, and you're going out in the street, well, you're going to find it tough. I'm not here to tell you that living in sin or rebellion or having some resistance of one part of your life to God doesn't matter. Yeah, it matters. And you're going to find doing anything for God's going to really suck. But what I am saying is, even if you're in that place, you are called to testify of Christ. I hear a lot of people talking about, oh, your testimony. Well, if your testimony is this, your testimony is that. We're not testifying of ourself. We are testifying of Christ. And I've had people over the years that have pointed out faults in my character and on the street. And a lot of times they don't even know me. They don't know my character. But when I'm having a good day, I will often respond by saying, you know what, even if that was true, I'm not here telling you how amazing I am. I'm here telling you that I'm a broken, wretched person. And as a sinful man, God reached down to me and he saved me. And even now, as a follower of Christ, I'm still falling on my face. And I need him every day. So it's not about your testimony. It's not about your comfort level in this. It is not about how you morally qualify. It is about Christ. And sometimes it's going to be in our weakness. It's going to be in that place where we don't feel all that we're really going to see the power of God working through us. And we're really going to be in a place to maybe have some humility that maybe we wouldn't have at another time. So yes, we should press into the things of God and we should live holy, but that is not determinative on whether or not we are obeying the Great Commission. It should never stop you. I know when I got saved in a kind of holiness Pentecostal church as a young man, I had it in my mind in those early days that, man, I had to have everything all sorted. You know, how many hours did I pray that day? How much fasting had I done? You know, am I like all over the Bible? Do I know everything? Like, I just had to have it all sorted out. And if I had it all sorted out, I was in that place where, man, yeah, I could go out and minister to people. And I've learned that that's just not reality. In fact, some of the most fruitful times I've had on the street is where I don't want to be there. I'll give you a story, for example. I had this big fight with my wife. And I went to work, didn't resolve it. I was in a bad mood, and my normal routine is every day I go out for an hour or more, and I get my speaker and I preach the gospel. I talk to people about Jesus, hand out tracts, and do all that stuff. And so this day I had a big fight, go to work, unresolved, I'm bitter, I'm twisted up, man. I'm not happy. And then it comes around to lunchtime, and I was just so cranky and so angry. I'm like, no, I'm not going out today. I'm gonna take my Bible and sit under a tree somewhere. So I got my Bible, went in and went to it was like a Catholic church, has a park in it. Went and sat there, read my Bible, and then as I'm walking out, these guys stopped me, big group, about 6 guys. It looked like they were from maybe Indonesia or somewhere. And they said, is this a Christian church? Is this Christian? And I said, no, this is a Catholic church. And I just wanted to hurry along and move on my way. They said, Christian and Catholic, is that different? And so inside, I was kind of annoyed at God. I'm like, oh, come on. I just wanted to be left alone. This is the day I just wanted to go and sit under a tree, and now I've got to talk to these guys about the gospel. And so I blurted out something to them and gave them the gospel, and I was still angry and twisted that I had to do it. But you know what? God used that. I don't know how God used that. I don't know if they all got saved or one of them or some of them, but it wasn't because I was in the right frame of mind. God wanted the gospel to go out, and he was going to use me to do it, regardless of how good I felt about it at that very moment, and whether or not I perceived that I was qualified to do that. And so we don't qualify to preach the gospel. We preach the gospel out of obedience to God. It's our duty. It is our calling, and we don't come in and out of that duty to do that. And so we don't qualify to preach the gospel morally. One of the other things that I hear people say is, well, am I theologically trained? Do I know enough to preach the gospel? What is it to preach the gospel? What is it to be a witness? When in Acts 1, where Jesus says to the disciples, you're going to be a witness, what's he referring to? Is he referring to a course in theology? Is he referring to understanding the London Baptist Confession of Faith? What is he referring to? How much of the Bible do you need to be a witness of Christ? And what does that even mean, to be a witness? I mean, we talk about that, right? Witnessing. How much do I need to know to qualify? Well, that would come back to, what is it that we're witnessing? Our job is to declare that Jesus died on a cross, that he went down into a grave, and he rose from that grave to resurrection life. And that's relevant to all of us because he has opened up a way for us to have eternal life through that. I don't know any Christian that doesn't know enough to say that. If you're saved, you know enough of the gospel to declare that gospel to another person. Sometimes people will say things like, I don't have the right personality. I don't have the attributes. An interesting dynamic for me is I've been a Christian for about 20 years. I've served in a number of churches. And one of the interesting things in my ministry, in public street ministry, is I think it's been common that the people that have labored alongside me and the people that I've labored alongside, it's generally not the most talented people in the church. It's just generally not. Now, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on all the reasons for that. But generally speaking, it's not the people that seem to be most qualified that are out there doing the work of the gospel. It's not guys that speak well, preach well, have all the business acumen and all the rest of it. I rarely see those guys come out. It's usually the ordinary folk, the guys, girls that maybe aren't leaders in their church. I think there's a reason for that. I think God takes great delight and glory from using very ordinary vessels. When I was an unsaved man in my younger days, man, I loved the Kung Fu movie. And maybe you've never seen a Kung Fu movie, but there would often be a scene in just about every Kung Fu movie where you'd have all of these guys with their big swords, and they had all the right equipment, and man, they looked mean. And then there'd be the Kung Fu master, and he has no sword. He doesn't have a weapon, and he just picks up like a broom or something, and he just goes to town and does all this crazy stuff and defeats them all. And the idea of that is that the greatness of the Kung Fu master is being shown in what he can actually use to defeat his enemy. And so he doesn't need the greatest sword. He doesn't need the greatest weapon. His greatness is in taking something that looks completely powerless and completely benign, something like a broom or a mop, and using that to kick the butt of his enemy. And so I think God's like that with us. I've often taught and preached on evangelism that the people that I'm most worried about are the talented people in the church, because I'm not sure how God can use them. I think God does take delight in taking somebody who's completely ordinary, who maybe doesn't have the personality that, you know, people think you need to have to go and communicate the gospel to other people. Maybe they're quiet, maybe they're shy, maybe it's not natural for them to talk to people. Maybe they get confused easy. Maybe they don't feel like they're just the right person for that, and they don't have the right giftings to be able to be a soul winner. Man, it's amazing how often that's the guy that God's going to use. And because when God does great things through that life, people look at that and they don't go, oh yeah, well that's, of course, Billy Bob, he's awesome and amazing. Of course they would, you know. They go, that guy, that happened? How did that happen? Thank God, it's just so amazing, so glorious. That's where God gets the glory. And so, yeah, you don't speak that well. You get confused. You're not a conversationalist. Being on the street in the presence of other people talking about Jesus freaks you out. Hey, man, join the club. All those things. We're not going to be successful, and we're not called because we are the best pick of the bunch. God uses those that the world looks at and says, that sucks. That's pathetic. God delights in taking that and using it for his own glory. I love that story in John 6 about a little boy who comes, and there's a vast need for food. The need is huge. It's an insurmountable problem at that point, physically, naturally speaking. He comes and says, I don't have that. This is what I got. You just take that. Here's my 2 fishes. Here's my lunch. He wasn't trying to give what he didn't have. He just gave what he had. And that's what we need to do. And that's the frame of mind and the motivation we need to have. Is God's not calling us to use gifts that we don't possess. God is not calling us to be something else. He wants to take you the way you are today, and he's going to use that, and he's going to glorify himself, and he's going to demonstrate his greatness and his power in comparison to you and your weakness, and along the way he's going to mature you and grow you in that. But you're never going to experience any of that stuff until you step out in faith and go, you know what, now I don't know if I pray enough, I don't know if I fast enough, I don't know if I'm all there, I don't think I've got the personality, I haven't got the smarts for this, but I'm just going to do it. I love God, and if all I can do is just stutter and stumble over my words and maybe say Jesus loves you and hand him a track, I'm going to do that. I promise you, you'll be amazed what God will do. Do you qualify to preach the gospel? Yeah, you do. You do. God bless you. I'll see you on the streets.